The human fleet was a ragtag collection of metal bruisers, limping through the void like drunken soldiers at last call. Captain Ree Jackson leaned back in her command chair, surveying the chaos on the bridge of the HMS Irony, a ship as battered and sarcastic as its name suggested. "Wormhole Crossroad dead ahead," she announced, her voice a mix of boredom and disdain. If anyone on this god-forsaken tub was going to get excited about Wormhole Crossroads, it wasn't going to be her. The bridge crew, a collection of misfits who looked like they had been rejected by a circus for being too weird, nodded in lazy unison. Lieutenant Gregor, a man whose eyebrows did more talking than his mouth, grunted an acknowledgement. "5 ships on our 6, he muttered, pointing at the chaotic mess on the display screen that passed for their radar. "'Bout time. I was starting to think the rest of the fleet got smart and left us behind," Ree quipped. The Wormhole Crossroads looked like a cosmic train station, minus the friendly conductors and overpriced coffee. 4 massive tunnels of swirling energy intersected, each leading to God knows where, and here they were, a floating junkyard ready to pick a direction. "So, where to, fearless leader?" came a voice from behind. It was Private Zeke, the kind of guy who'd make a lousy sidekick in a buddy comedy, all sarcasm, no loyalty. "How about the one marked certain death?" Ree replied, not even turning around. "Seems fitting, don't you think?" Before Zeke could toss back one of his usually uninspired comebacks, the ship shuddered violently as if a giant cosmic toddler had decided to shake them like a rattle. "What the hell?" Ree's hand shot out, gripping the armrest as she barked orders. "Status, Gregor." His eyebrows did a frantic dance. "We've got company," he said, his voice tinged with a mix of fear and anger. "Alien signature, Thala." Ree's lips twisted into a smile that would have made a shark proud. "Well, ain't that just peachy? First contact and we've got a hive mind. The Thala, a species rumored to share one brain across countless bodies, which, if you asked Ree, seemed like a terrible idea. One bad day and you've got a whole species in a mood. "Open a channel," she commanded, her eyes narrowing to slits. "Let's see if they are in the mood for a chat." The screen flickered before settling on an image that was all too typical of the Thala, a pulsating mass of translucent blue, tendrils probing the air as if tasting the very fabric of space. It didn't have a face, which made sarcasm difficult, but Ree was nothing if not adaptable. "This is Captain Ree Jackson of the HMS Irony," she said, her tone dripping with a sweet sarcasm. "Welcome to the neighborhood. Can we borrow a cup of sugar, or are you here to murder us all?" There was a pause, the kind of silence that screams louder than sound. Then a voice projected directly into their minds, rich and metallic like a robotic opera. "Humans. Intriguing." "You are far from your origin," Zeke snorted, loud enough to be heard over the mental connection. "Yeah, we got lost. Makes you wonder who's the real dumbass here, huh?" Ree shot him a look that promised future pain. "We're here exploring," she replied, giving the Thala the same smile she'd give an annoying neighbor who'd just stepped in dog shit. "Looking to make friends." The Thala's image flickered as if amused. "Friendship. An earthly construct. We are not familiar." "Of course you're not," Ree muttered under her breath. "Gregor, any signs they're charging weapons?" "Not yet," he replied, his voice tight and cautious. "But they're definitely scanning us." "Scanning us for what?" Zeke interrupted, his eyes fixed on the alien display. "Fashion tips. Weapons, capabilities, weaknesses," Gregor said dryly, shooting a side glance at Zeke. "That last part they might find useful." "Shut it," Ree snapped, though she couldn't suppress a grin. The bridge was tense, but this was where she thrived. There was a certain clarity in chaos. The Thala continued, "Our network perceives you as a threat, yet also of interest." "Well, we've been called worse," Ree replied. "Listen, we're just passing through. No need for a diplomatic incident, unless you're into that sort of thing." There was another pause, and Ree imagined the Thala's collective brain mulling over her words like a particularly unsolvable puzzle. She could almost feel the weight of their intellect pressing down on the bridge. "Your technology is primitive," the Thala announced finally. "Yet your tenacity is noteworthy." That's polite alien talk for you're an idiot but you've got guts, Zeke translated, his voice dripping with mock cheerfulness. Thank you, Zeke, Ree said, rolling her eyes skyward. What can we offer you to smooth things over, O mighty Thala? The Thala paused again, and for a moment Ree thought she'd pushed her luck too far. Then information exchange. Information, huh? Ree mused, tapping her chin thoughtfully. We tell you about us, you tell us about you. Affirmative. Ree leaned back, a grin playing at the corners of her mouth. All right, you've got a deal, but I want to guarantee you won't try to eat us afterward. The Thala's image shimmered, a curious blend of curiosity and something approaching amusement. Agreed. Ree nodded, feeling the tension in the room ease slightly. Prepare the data packets, she ordered, her crew springing into action with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for off-duty drinks. And someone get me a damn coffee. Black as your soul, boss? Zeke asked, his grin infuriatingly cheerful. You know it, Ree shot back. Now, let's see what we can learn from our new friends. The bridge settled into a tense calm, the crew working in sync as the irony floated at the edge of the wormhole, a testament to human stubbornness. Ree couldn't help but feel a twinge of excitement. Sure, they were outgunned, outnumbered, and about 3 bad lunches from a mutiny, but they were here, standing at the crossroads of the universe, and she intended to make the most of it. As the data packets flowed between the irony and the Thala, Ree watched the alien image on the screen, wondering what lay behind those alien eyes, or whatever passed for eyes in a species like the Thala. She felt the hum of the ship beneath her, a living thing in its own right, and she smiled. For all its flaws, all its imperfections, this was her crew, her ship, her moment. The Thala's voice cut through her thoughts, a cold reminder of their presence. Your species is an anomaly, Ree chuckled darkly. You don't know the half of it, pal. They drifted there, suspended in the void, a human ship surrounded by the unknown. Behind them lay the familiar, ahead uncertainty, and in between humor and grit were all they had, and sometimes Ree thought that was enough. Captain, Gregor's voice broke the silence, Thala signatures increasing. Ree's eyes narrowed. What do you mean increasing? More ships, Gregor clarified, his tone as grim as an undertaker at a discount funeral. Wonderful, Ree said, her voice a study in sarcasm. Looks like the whole hive's coming to say hello. The bridge crew snapped to attention, their earlier banter replaced by a sharp focus. The Thala were an enigma wrapped in a mystery, and now it seemed that enigma was multiplying. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Ree ordered, her voice steady. They want to dance, we'll give them a show. The irony may have been a clunker, a rust bucket held together with gum and hope, but it was their rust bucket and they weren't going down without a fight. The Thala voices returned, softer now, like a whisper on the edge of a dream. We observe. Yeah, you and everyone else, Ree muttered, her hands flying over the controls. Let's see if you can keep up. The irony surged forward, engines roaring as they prepared to navigate the Wormhole Crossroads, a leap into the unknown with a hive of aliens nipping at their heels. Ree grinned, adrenaline singing in her veins. This was what she lived for, the chase, the thrill, the knowledge that they were alive against all odds. Hold on tight, she called over her shoulder, feeling the ship respond to her command. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. The Thala ships closed in, their formation tight, precision engineered to perfection. But the irony was not about perfection. It was about survival, about defying expectations. As they plunged into the wormhole, Ree felt a surge of triumph mixed with the ever-present undercurrent of fear. The unknown loomed ahead, dark and full of possibilities. The screen flickered, the last image of the Thala dissolving into static. Ree took a deep breath, her mind racing with possibilities. See you on the other side, she whispered to herself, to her crew, to the universe. To the Thala she left a parting thought. You may have the numbers, you may have the technology, but humanity has something you can't comprehend, sheer, unbridled audacity. And sometimes, Ree knew, that was more than enough. The HMS Irony lurched through the wormhole, its hull groaning in protest like a geriatric dog forced to chase one more stick. Ree felt her spine compress a little more with every violent shudder. Good thing she wasn't planning on getting taller anytime soon. "Any updates from our friends?" she asked, not bothering to hide the sarcasm that dripped from the word friends. Gregor's eyebrows shot up, practically hitting his hairline. "They're still there, Captain, but something's changed." Ree gave him a sidelong look. "Changed? Did they decide to grow a sense of humor?" Zeke snorted from his station, where he was pretending to be useful. "Doubt it. But if they did, it'd be the first time they were ahead of us in anything." Gregor interrupted the banter, his tone earnest. "It's like they're fluctuating. Their formation is breaking, reforming. It's not normal." "Great," Ree muttered. "Alien indecisiveness, just what we needed." She turned her attention to the screen, where the Thala ships flickered like bad reception on intergalactic cable TV. They were definitely up to something. Hopefully, it wasn't the cosmic equivalent of a piñata party with the irony as the guest of honor. "Get me Linus," she barked. "If anyone can science the hell out of this, it's him." Doctor. Linus Quell was the kind of scientist who made mad geniuses look like well-adjusted PTA members. He shuffled onto the bridge, hair sticking up in every direction like he just wrestled a small tornado, which, given the state of his lab, was entirely possible. "You called," Linus said, eyes scanning the chaos with a sort of gleeful anticipation. "Disturbing but useful." "Thala are acting weird," Ree explained. "Weirder than usual. We need to know why." Linus tilted his head, a smile creeping up his face that suggested he'd just spotted a particularly juicy research grant, or a new species of fungus. "Fascinating." "Fascinating?" Zeke echoed. "This isn't a nature documentary, Doc. We're in the middle of a space scrabble with aliens who might want to play Decapitate the Human." Linus ignored him, tapping away at his portable console. His fingers danced over the keys with the kind of rhythm that suggested he practiced this more than basic hygiene protocols. The bridge fell silent, except for the occasional creak of the ship and the constant hum of the engines. Ree could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to scoop with a spoon, or better yet, a shovel. "What have you got?" she asked, leaning over Linus's shoulder. "The Thala collective mind is experiencing disturbances," Linus said, eyes wide with what anyone could mistake for delight. "Like static in a hive mind network." "Static? Like when you try to tune into a channel that doesn't exist," Ree suggested, the analogy hitting a little too close to home with the ironies communication systems. "Exactly," Linus replied with a nod. "This shouldn't be possible. Their entire species operates on a synchronized neural network. For them, it should be like being out of sync at a cosmic rave." The prospect of hundreds of alien minds stumbling around in confusion was almost enough to make Ree smile. Almost. "What could cause it?" she pressed. Linus shrugged, an impressively nonchalant gesture given the circumstances. "Could be anything. A galactic anomaly, a technological glitch, or something we did," Gregor interjected, his voice filling the gap Linus left open. "Possibly," Linus admitted, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Something in their interaction with us, perhaps. A frequency or a signal they weren't prepared for." "Great," Ree said, folding her arms across her chest. "So we accidentally turned the Thala into the universe's worst boy band." Zeke snickered, earning him a glare that promised more thrusters cleaning duty. "At least we have a chance," Gregor offered. "If they're off balance, maybe we can negotiate." "Negotiate what exactly?" Zeke asked, ever the cynic. "A one-way ticket out of here. I'm pretty sure my survival odds are better playing tag with a supernova." Ree tapped her fingers against the armrest, mind racing. "Linus, can we use this to our advantage? If their network's glitching, can we send them a message they can't ignore?" Linus's eyes lit up, like a kid waking up on Christmas to find out Santa left him a laboratory. "In theory, yes. If we can identify the disruption, we might be able to amplify it. Or patch it so they owe us one," Gregor added, eyebrows doing a quick jig to emphasize his point. Ree considered this, the potential beneficial outcome making her uncomfortable. After all, it wasn't like her to be optimistic. "Do it," she decided. "At the very least, it'll buy us time." Linus got to work, fingers a blur on his console, muttering to himself in a language that was probably 50% science and 50% gibberish. Meanwhile, Gregor monitored the thallaships, his expressions doing the work of 1,000 words. "They're still fluctuating, Captain. It's like they're trying to sort out a chorus with each brain cell singing its own tune. Let's see if we can help them find their rhythm," Ree said, feeling a strange mix of apprehension and excitement. The HMS Irony wasn't just a ship. It was a living testament to what humans did best: survive, adapt, and annoy the hell out of whatever was stupid enough to underestimate them. "Doctor," Quell recalled, "how's our little project coming along?" Linus glanced up, a grin wide enough to split his face. "Ready when you are, Captain," Ree nodded, then turned to Zeke and Gregor. "Okay, boys and girls, we're about to give our interstellar buddies a lesson in human unpredictability. Cross your fingers, toes, and anything else you've got two of." "Wouldn't dream of missing it," Zeke replied, a hint of genuine amusement in his voice. "On my mark," Ree said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. 3, 2, before she could reach one, the ship's lights flickered, then died. The bridge plunged into an inky darkness that swallowed them whole, leaving only the quiet hum of the engines as a reminder they hadn't slipped into the abyss entirely. "Well, that's ominous," Zeke muttered. "Emergency lights," Ree ordered, trying to ignore the creeping dread that came with the blackout. She liked the dark about as much as a cat liked a bath. The dim emergency lighting flickered on, bathing the bridge in a red glow that made everyone look like they were auditioning for a horror movie. Not that the Irony needed help in that department. Ree's fingers found the comm. "Linus, what the hell just happened?" His voice crackled through the intercom, muffled but still carrying that note of excitement that made Ree wish he'd tone it down a notch. "The disruption, it's growing." "I didn't do this, Captain, I swear," she gritted her teeth. "Fantastic, Gregor status report." Gregor's eyebrows were practically trying to escape his face. "Systems are crashing, but it's not just us. The thallaships, they're experiencing something similar." "What do you mean?" Ree demanded. They're broadcasting. It's like they're trying to reach out. Sending a signal, but it's distorted." Ree rubbed her temples, trying to process this latest development. "So, we've gone from playing defense to being caught in the middle of an alien SOS. Great. Just great." Linus's voice crackled over the comm again, more urgent now. "Captain, if we can intercept that signal, we might find out what's causing the disruption." She nodded, though no one could see it. "Do it." The bridge was silent apart from the rhythmic beeping of consoles being stubbornly coaxed back to life. Zeke's fingers tapped impatiently against his console, a drumbeat for the tension that filled the room. "Signal intercepted," Gregor announced finally, his voice cutting through the oppressive quiet. "Patch it through," Ree ordered. The noise that filled the bridge was a cacophony of sound, static, alien voices, and something else, something human. It was like listening to a radio station that couldn't decide whether it wanted to play alien rock or earth jazz. "What the hell is that?" Zeke asked, wincing as the noise grew louder. Ree leaned forward, straining to catch the words buried in the chaos. It was a human voice, distorted but unmistakable. "This is static asterisk, relay station, static asterisk, in need of assistance, static asterisk. HMS Irony, do you copy?" For a moment, Ree could only stare at the console, disbelief warring with the flicker of hope that dared to spark in her chest. Someone out there knew they were here, that they were in trouble. "Well, looks like we've got ourselves a cliffhanger," she said, a smile tugging at her lips despite herself. "Let's see if we can't turn this mess into an opportunity." She felt the eyes of her crew on her, waiting, trusting her to lead them through the storm. And for the first time since they'd entered this hellish wormhole, Ree felt the thrill of possibility thrumming in her veins. Because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was embracing chaos and making it work for them. "Let's get to work," Ree commanded, her voice steady. "We've got an SOS to answer and a hive mind to untangle. And if that doesn't scream human tenacity, I don't know what does." The HMS Irony surged forward, engines humming with renewed purpose as they plunged deeper into the unknown, their future uncertain but their path clear. And for Captain Ree Jackson, that was enough. Dr. Linus Quell was grinning like a mad scientist who'd just found out his lab rat could do the cha-cha, which, in a way, wasn't far from the truth. "Captain, I've got something. Spit it out, Linus," Ree said, eyes fixed on the static-riddled screens like they might suddenly spit out an answer in Morse code. "Before the ship decides it's had enough of our shenanigans and self-destructs out of pure spite." Linus adjusted his glasses in a way that suggested they'd spent more on spaceship fuel than optometry. "It's the Thala's neural network. It's sensitive to human emotional frequencies. Our presence is causing their hive mind to go haywire," Zeke snorted. "So, being emotional chaos machines is finally paying off." "Didn't see that coming." Ree couldn't argue with that. Humans weren't known for their emotional restraint unless you counted bottling it up until they exploded at family dinners. "You're telling me we've turned them into an intergalactic therapy session, essentially." Linus's excitement was infectious, like a virus. An enthusiastic, slightly irritating virus. "Our individualism is causing fractures in their collective consciousness." "Well, I'll be damned," Gregor said, his eyebrows arching like they were trying to escape his forehead. "We've weaponized being ourselves." "Never thought I'd see the day." Ree leaned back in her commander's chair, letting out a sigh that was equal parts relief and exasperation. "So, what do we do?" "Keep blasting them with emotional turbulence until they need space Prozac. We could try to communicate," Linus suggested, optimism dripping from his voice like it had forgotten this was a grimdark universe. "If we can stabilize the signal, we might be able to reach the Thala and explain the situation." Ree raised an eyebrow. "You think they'll just sit down and have a chat over tea and existential dread? Worth a shot, isn't it?" Linus countered, not missing a beat. "If we can stabilize their network, maybe they'll return the favor." Zeke rubbed his chin, a gesture that made him look like he'd just stepped out of a detective novel. "And if they decide they'd rather pop our heads like overripe melons, then we retreat and hope we can outrun something with 8 hyperdrives and a grudge," Ree said dryly. "Ah, the classic Plan B," Zeke replied with a smirk. "Always a fan favorite." Ree glanced around the bridge at her ragtag crew of misfits and survivors. They'd been through enough to know that happy endings were rarer than an honest politician. But hell, they were still here. Still breathing, still fighting. "All right, Linus," she said, "get to it. See if you can make sense of all this cosmic noise." Linus nodded, diving back into his console with the enthusiasm of a puppy left alone in a room full of chew toys. "I'll need time." "Time," Ree echoed, glancing at the clock that kept stubbornly ticking forward, indifferent to their predicament. "The one thing we're always running out of." As Linus worked his magic or madness depending on your perspective, Ree turned her attention to Gregor. "How's our fleet holding up?" Gregor's eyebrows did a somersault. "Like a bunch of space hobos duct taped together. But they are sticking with us, loyalty or desperation?" Ree asked, knowing full well loyalty was a luxury they couldn't afford. "Bit of both, probably," Gregor admitted. "No one wants to be left behind in a wormhole crossroads with hostile aliens." "Fair enough," Ree said, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "Can't say I blame them." The bridge settled into a tense silence, the kind that felt like the universe was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Zeke broke it with a sigh that spoke volumes about his opinion on their chances. "What if this doesn't work, Captain?" Ree considered the question. It was one that gnawed at the back of her mind like a persistent rodent. "Then we figure out something else, Zeke." "We always do." Comforting, Zeke said, though there was a grudging respect in his tone. "Nice to know we're consistent, if nothing else." Hours ticked by in a blur of static-laden attempts to stabilize the Thala signal, punctuated by the occasional curse or triumphant shout from Linus. The crew cycled through shifts, sleep-deprived and running on a cocktail of caffeine and grim determination. Finally, Linus looked up, his face a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. "I think we've got it, Captain." The signal's clear. Ree blinked, momentarily taken aback by the prospect of success. "Patch it through." Linus nodded, fingers flying over the console with the precision of a pianist performing his magnum opus. The bridge speakers crackled to life, filling the room with a voice that was unmistakably alien yet oddly melodic. It was like listening to a celestial choir on a very bad day. "This is the Thala Council." The voice was calm, controlled, though there was an undercurrent of strain. "Your presence has disrupted our unity." Ree stepped forward, clearing her throat. "This is Captain Ree Jackson of the HMS Irony. We're aware of the disruption, it seems. We've had an unforeseen cultural exchange." The Thala voice hesitated, as if it was debating whether to laugh, scream, or hang up. "Cultural exchange, yeah," Zeke interjected, unable to resist. "Turns out, human individuality isn't just a pain in the ass for us." The alien voice didn't respond immediately, and Ree wondered if they were coming to terms with the concept of individualism, or deciding on the most efficient way to eliminate it. "We require assistance to restore our network," the Thala finally said, every word carefully measured, as though they were afraid too much might tip the balance of sanity. "And we need a way out of this wormhole crossroads," Ree replied, crossing her arms. "Looks like we're in a bit of a mutual bind situation. Help us stabilize," the Thala voice continued, "and we will guide you through the crossroads." Ree glanced at her crew. "Sounds like a win-win, or at least a not lose-lose." Linus nodded fervently, as if the cosmos had personally confirmed his theory. "Captain, if we can recalibrate our systems to emit a harmonizing frequency, it might lessen the impact on their network." Translation, Zeke said, "Turn down the emotional static. We're pulling a full metal jacket on their neural net." "Precisely," Linus agreed, a hint of pride in his voice. "It's quite fascinating." "Fascinating," Ree repeated, shaking her head. "Only you could find this fascinating." "Let's get to it," Gregor added, his eyebrows forming a determined line. Before they changed their minds, the ship buzzed with activity as Linus and the crew worked on recalibrating the systems. Ree could feel the tension in the air, see it mirrored in the faces of her crew. It was a gamble, like playing poker with a deck that had more jokers than aces. Iors slipped by, the bridge alive with the hum of machinery and the occasional burst of static as they patched into the Thala signal. At long last, Linus gave a triumphant whoop, his excitement enough to lift the mood by several notches. "It's working," he exclaimed, the joy in his voice cutting through the tension like a knife through butter, if that butter was made of anxiety and existential dread. The Thala voice returned, this time clearer, more focused. "Our network is stabilizing. Your actions have alleviated the disruptions." Ree allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before speaking. "Then it's your turn. We need a path, a way out of this mess. Coordinates are being transmitted," the Thala replied, a note of gratitude in their otherwise alien tone. "Your assistance will not be forgotten. Always nice to make friends by sheer accident," Zeke commented, though there was a ghost of a grin on his face. "You said it," Ree replied, a chuckle escaping her lips. "Let's hope they remember this the next time we accidentally break their hive mind." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in an oddly serene silence. A silence filled with the realization that they'd just pulled off the impossible, or at least the highly improbable. "Coordinates received," Gregor announced, his voice steady as he plotted their course. "Looks like we're getting out of here after all. Bring us home," Gregor reordered, a wave of relief washing over her. "And remind me to give Linus a raise, or a medal." "Hell, maybe both." Linus grinned, his happiness infectious enough to even draw a reluctant smile from Zeke. "I'll take both, Captain." The HMS Irony surged forward once more, engines humming a tune of triumph as they navigated through the wormhole crossroads. Outside, the swirling energies of the cosmos danced, a testament to the chaos they'd weathered and the challenges they'd overcome. Ree leaned back in her chair, a sense of satisfaction settling over her like a worn but comfortable cloak. They'd done it. Against the odds, they'd found a way. And as the ship slipped through the final stretch of the wormhole, Ree couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, chaos was on their side after all. Next time, she said aloud, let's aim for a simple rescue mission. No intergalactic drama, no hive minds. Boring, Zeke quipped, leaning back in his chair with a smirk. Where's the fun in that? Ree laughed, the sound echoing through the bridge like a bell of victory. You're right. Where's the fun in that? With the wormhole finally behind them, the stars stretched out ahead, a canvas of infinite possibilities. And for Captain Ree Jackson and her crew aboard the HMS Irony, that was more than enough. Set course for home, Gregor, she said, her voice a steady anchor amidst the vastness of space. Let's see what's next. The ship surged forward, leaving behind the chaos and carving a path toward the unknown, a testament to human tenacity, stubbornness, and the unyielding desire to survive. And if the universe had other plans, well, they'd handle that too. The HMS Iron's bridge was buzzing with that special kind of tension that made your teeth itch if you stayed in one place too long. The digital countdown loomed on the main monitor like a hangman's noose, ticking away seconds with relentless precision. It was the worst kind of suspense, the sort where you knew something bad was coming, but couldn't quite put your finger on what exactly was going to explode first. Captain, Gregor's eyebrows were doing their interpretive dance routine again, performing an avant-garde piece titled Mild Panic. We've got movement from the Thala ships, some kind of internal reshuffling. Looks like a faction split. Great, Ree muttered, rubbing the bridge of her nose like it owed her money. Just what we needed. A civil war. In space. With aliens. Who hate us. Beside her, Zeke leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his chest with the air of a man who'd just discovered he was the only sober person at a drunken brawl. Well, it's not a party until someone breaks a bottle over their own head, right, Doctor? Linus Quell, still riding high on the thrill of his recent success, peered up from his console with an enthusiasm bordering on the manic. Actually, this could be a fascinating insight into their societal structures. Fascinating, Ree echoed, her voice dripping with sarcasm so thick you could spread it on toast. That's one word for it. The Thala ships, once a tight and intimidating formation of silent menace, were now a chaotic jumble of erratic movements. Some ships peeled off, breaking formation in a manner that suggested something akin to a drunken stagger. Others were circling like sharks that just realized they might be the prey. We've got a problem, Gregor said, fingers dancing over his console as he tried to make sense of the madness playing out on his screen. Our Thala friends are having a bit of a disagreement about who gets to blow us up first. Ree leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the monitor. And here I was hoping for a nice, quiet existential crisis. If they start shooting each other, we're caught in the crossfire, Zeke pointed out, ever the beacon of optimism. And I left my body armor in my other cargo pants. Suggestions? Ree asked, her voice carrying just enough of a challenge to make it clear she wasn't looking for a debate. Negotiate with the sane ones, Linus suggested, ever the hopeful peacemaker. Maybe there's a faction that prefers talking to shooting. Always the optimist, Zeke quipped. I'm betting on the faction that wants to shoot first and talk later. Much more relatable. Gregor's eyebrows had settled into a serious line, indicating he was in full let's not die today mode. We could recalibrate our transmissions. Try to keep the peace by not radiating too much shoot-me energy. Reconsider their options, or lack thereof. Linus, can you tweak our systems to keep the Thala from getting itchy trigger fingers? I can try, Linus said, already absorbed in his work, fingers flying across the keyboard like he was playing an intense round of interstellar whack-a-mole. While Linus busied himself with their signal, Ree turned her attention back to the bridge's main screen, where the Thala ships danced a macabre ballet. Let's hope there's enough reasonable Thala left to talk this out. As if on cue, the speakers crackled with a voice that had the unfortunate combination of sounding both alien and thoroughly pissed off. Human vessel, your presence continues to disrupt our unity. Cease interference or face consequences. Consequences, repeated, rolling the word around in her mouth like it tasted bad. They always make it sound like they are about to send us to bed without supper, Zeke snorted, or toss us out the airlock. Same difference, really. Ree leaned toward the communication panel. This is Captain Ree Jackson of the HMS Irony. We're working to stabilize the situation. If you have suggestions that don't involve blowing us to cosmic dust, I'm all ears. The alien voice paused, and Ree couldn't help but imagine it was taking a deep breath, or whatever the Thala did when they needed to calm down. Assist us in re-establishing communication with our fractured groups. Let me guess, Zeke said, voice dripping with cynicism. We do the grunt work and they take the credit. Sounds like every team project ever, Gregor added, not looking up from his console. Linus, still immersed in his task, lifted his head long enough to shoot Ree a look of pure excitement. If we can align our frequencies correctly, we might be able to help them coordinate. Sounds good, Linus, Ree said. Let's see if we can't play interstellar therapist and save our hides in the process. As the crew set about their tasks, the tension in the room thickened, an almost tangible force that pressed against their ribs and made every breath seem heavier. Outside, the Thala ships continued their erratic waltz, each movement a potential prelude to chaos or worse. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness, each one a small eternity as Linus, and the crew wrestled with the challenge of calming a species-wide tantrum. Ree hovered near the communication panel, ready to engage at a moment's notice. Linus? She prompted, her voice carrying equal parts urgency and impatience. Almost there, Linus replied, his focus unwavering. Just a little more. The bridge was quiet save for the hum of machinery and the occasional crackle of static from the Thala channels. The waiting was its own form of torture, a relentless barrage of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Finally, Linus straightened, a grin splitting his face. We're transmitting. Let's see if the Thala appreciate a good peace offering. Re-keyed the comms, addressing the Thala directly. We're broadcasting a harmonized signal. Let us know if it helps your situation. The response was immediate. The Thala ships began to slow, their movements becoming more coordinated, less chaotic. The voice returned, sounding almost grateful. Your assistance is effective. Coordination is being restored. Well, I'll be damned, Zeke said, sounding genuinely surprised for once. Looks like we're not getting vaporized today. Not today, Ree agreed, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The Thala's newfound orderliness was a relief, but the tension of what had nearly happened lingered. They dodged one bullet, but the gun was still loaded and pointed. Captain, Gregor's voice brought her back to the immediate reality. Message coming in from our fleet. Let's hear it, Ree said, bracing for whatever new chaos was knocking at their airlock. A familiar voice crackled over the intercom belonging to Commodore Vale, a figure known more for their stubbornness than their tact. HMS Irony report. Situation is escalating. We need a plan. Ree rolled her eyes, though there was a hint of affection behind the gesture. Commodore, we've managed to stabilize the Thala for now, but we need options in case the truce doesn't hold. Options. Vale's voice was wry, the sound of someone who'd run out of those a long time ago. I've got a fleet held together by duct tape and prayer. Options are in short supply. Then let's make some, Ree replied, determination hardening her words. We'll keep working with the Thala to maintain peace. In the meantime, get our ships prepped for a quick exit. Just in case they change their minds. You got it, Captain Vale said, their voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. With the channel closed, Ree turned back to her crew, her gaze sweeping over each of them in turn. They looked tired, but there was a fierce determination in their eyes, the kind that said they weren't ready to roll over and die. Keep monitoring the Thala, she ordered, her voice steady and sure. We're not out of this mess yet. The bridge settled into a rhythm of tense vigilance, each member of the crew focused on their tasks with a single-minded intensity that bordered on obsession. They couldn't afford mistakes, Not now, not when one misstep could end with them spaced. Iors crept by, each one a testament to their endurance and stubborn refusal to give in. The thallaships maintained their fragile cohesion, held together by the tenuous threads of human ingenuity and luck. Ree found herself pacing, unable to sit still as the pressure of their situation weighed on her shoulders like a leaden cloak. She'd always thrived in the chaos, but this was different. This was a dance on the edge of a knife, and she was acutely aware of how easy it would be to fall. Captain Gregor's voice was a lifeline pulling her back to the present. Incoming transmission from the Thala. Put it through, Ree said, bracing for whatever fresh insanity awaited them. The Thala voice filled the bridge, calm but with an undercurrent of urgency. We request further assistance. Internal factions are still unstable. Your presence remains necessary, Zeke repeated, a sardonic twist to his lips. Nice to know we're still wanted. Let's keep them stable, Ree said, determination in her voice. Linus, keep the signal steady. Gregor, keep an eye on the fleet. Zeke, try not to piss anyone off. Zeke grinned, but there was steel behind the humor. No promises, Captain. With their roles clear, the crew of the HMS Irony settled back into the delicate dance of crisis management, each move calculated to keep the peace and buy them more time. The Iors stretched on, a relentless march toward an uncertain future. But amidst the chaos and tension, there was a thread of camaraderie that bound them together, a shared understanding that whatever happened next, they'd face it as a team. And so they waited, caught in the eye of a storm that could break at any moment, each breath a reminder of their precarious existence. The thallaships remained in formation, the peace fragile but holding, a testament to human tenacity and the power of improbable alliances. Ree knew they couldn't count on it lasting forever, but for now, it was enough. Enough to keep them alive. Enough to give them a fighting chance. And as the HMS Irony continued its vigil, the bridge bathed in the soft glow of console lights, Ree allowed herself a small, defiant smile. They'd come this far, and she'd be damned if they didn't see it through to the end. The HMS Irony drifted wearily at the cosmic train station's crossroads, its crew stretched to their limits, their patience thinner than Zeke's loyalty. Everything seemed just one frayed wire away from total collapse. The Wormhole Crossroads, with its swirling tunnels of energy, loomed like an indifferent cosmic deity, watching their efforts with the disdain of a cat eyeing a struggling mouse. Of course, this mouse had guns, but still. An uneasy silence permeated the bridge, the thallaships outside frozen in their eerie, tense formation like dancers afraid to step on each other's toes. It was a silence that begged for disruption, because nothing screamed impending doom, quite like a moment of peace in the middle of a cosmic standoff. As if on cue, the ship shook violently, the kind of jolt that suggested the universe had decided to give them a gentle reminder of its indifference. The alarms blared their obnoxious siren song, each note shrieking a reminder that things could always get worse. "What now?" Ree asked, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 disappointments. Gregor, eyebrows furrowing like angry caterpillars, reviewed the console readouts. "Looks like a rogue Thala faction is getting antsy. They're charging weapons." Zeke snorted, a sound that held equal parts cynicism and acceptance. "Great. Just when we were almost getting comfortable." "Comfortable?" Ree echoed. "I'd swap this comfort for a colony of rabid space weasels." Linus, still glued to his console, threw in his 2 cents. Space weasels would probably be easier to negotiate with. The ship shuddered again, the rogue Thala's intentions as clear as their aggression. Ree gritted her teeth, feeling the familiar weight of command settle on her shoulders. She knew the stakes, knew what a full-on Thala assault could mean, and she wasn't in the mood to play cosmic dodgeball. "All hands defensive positions," Ree ordered, her voice cutting through the rising tension like a well-sharpened blade. "We've got a rogue element that thinks it's time for a spat." Zeke, unfazed by the chaos, adjusted his station settings with the nonchalance of a man ordering coffee. "You know, I was starting to think they liked us." "Guess we missed the memo." "More like they want us to miss the memo with a laser beam," Gregor muttered, his eyebrows now resembling a pair of angry slashes. The bridge descended into controlled chaos, crew members moving with the kind of precision that came from knowing every misstep might be their last. The Thala ships on the screen began to shift, their lethal elegance unnerving. "Linus, keep working on that signal," Ree barked. "See if we can't calm them down." "Captain," Linus replied, fingers dancing over his console. "I'm doing my best, but it might be like talking a bear out of mauling you with a soothing lullaby." "They say music changes the beast," Ree shot back, though she wasn't feeling particularly musical. "And Gregor, see if the Commodore has any bright ideas." Gregor's console lit up with a transmission from the fleet. He relayed it with a sigh heavy enough to squash a rodent. "Commodore Vale suggests we hold our ground. They're prepping a retreat, but it's going to take time." "Time," Zeke mused, as if tasting the word. "The one thing we're always bloody short on." Ree turned her gaze to the screen, watching the Thala ship inch closer, a predatory gleam in its design. The countdown on the main monitor ticked away like a grim reaper's metronome. A countdown to what, she didn't want to guess. "We've got one shot at this," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Let's make it count." The HMS Irene's defensive system sprang to life, the ship's hull thrumming with energy, ready to unleash hell or at least a reasonable facsimile. The Thala were circling now, sharks scenting blood. It was a dance of death, and none of them had the luxury of being wallflowers. "They're charging weapons," Gregor noted, his eyebrows doing an impressive impression of a roller coaster. "Good for them," Ree snapped. "Tell them we've got a dance card too and it's full." Linus, still furiously typing, chimed in. "Signals reaching out. If they don't respond to this, they are either deaf or determined to make us very, very dead." "Odds are on the latter," Zeke said, leaning back in his chair like it was a bar stool and he was just another patron waiting for last call. The Thala ships loomed closer, their movements a deadly ballet, all fluid lines and lethal intent. The HMS Irene's sensors screamed warnings, each one a reminder of how precarious their situation was. "Return fire if we're hit," Ree ordered. "But try to keep it civil. We're not looking to start a war." "Right, because clearly we're in the middle of a peace summit," Zeke quipped, raising a skeptical eyebrow. The Thala ships unleashed a volley, the energy beams slicing through space with deadly precision. The Irene's shields flared, absorbing the brunt of the assault, but the ship shuddered under the impact, systems groaning in protest. "Shields holding barely," Gregor reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Time to show them what happens when you poke the bear," Ree said, her voice carrying the promise of retribution. The HMS Irene's weapons roared to life, retaliating with a focused barrage, each shot sent with a silent prayer to the gods of improbable survival. The Thala ships danced away, nimble and evasive, but the Irene's point was made. "That got their attention," Linus noted, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "Let's hope it didn't just piss them off more," Ree replied, though the thought of aggravating the Thala didn't particularly faze her anymore. It was just another day at the office. The rogue Thala regrouped, their movements suggesting a renewed assault. The HMS Irene braced for impact, the crew's resolve tightening like a noose around their fears. They'd been through worse, survived hell and high water. This was just another test, another round in the cosmic boxing ring. "Incoming!" Gregor shouted, the urgency in his voice a stark reminder that survival was a thin line, constantly threatening to snap. The Thala ships unleashed another barrage, the Irene's shields flaring in protest, the hull groaning under the assault. The bridge filled with the acrid scent of ozone, a reminder of the precarious line they walked. "Shields at 50%, Zeke reported, his voice a masterclass in calm under fire. "How's that signal, Linus?" Ree asked, though she wasn't sure if she wanted to hear the answer. "Reaching out, Captain," Linus replied, his fingers a blur as he worked. "Just a matter of whether they are in the mood to listen." Well, here's hoping they're feeling chatty, Ree said, her voice carrying a forced lightness. Otherwise, this might be a very short conversation. The HMS Irony's weapon systems fired again, a barrage of defiance, each shot a statement of their refusal to go quietly. The Thalos ships danced around the assault, their movements a taunting reminder of their agility. "Signals stabilizing," Linus called out, hope threading through his words. "If they are receiving, we might just have a shot at this." "Then let's make it count," Ree said, her resolve hardening. "Open a channel." The bridge fell silent, the kind of silence that stretched, pulled tight with anticipation. The Thalos ships slowed, their aggression momentarily checked by the signal, a thread of sanity in the madness. "This is Captain Ree Jackson of the HMS Irony," Ree said, her voice carrying the weight of their collective desperation. "We want to help you stabilize. Let's not make this our last conversation." The channel crackled with static, each second a drawn-out eternity. The crew held their breath, a shared tension binding them together in the face of the unknown. Finally, a response came, the Thala voice carrying a hint of grudging respect. "Human vessel, your efforts are acknowledged. Further aggression will cease." Zeke let out a low whistle, a sound that spoke volumes. "Well, color me surprised. They actually listened." "Guess we're more charming than we thought," Gregor added, though his eyebrows still hovered in a state of mild alarm. "Don't get too comfortable," Ree warned, though relief tinged her words. "We're not out of the woods yet." The Thalos ships pulled back, their aggression checked by the slimmest margin of diplomacy. The HMS Irony remained on high alert, the crew poised for any sudden shift, any hint of betrayal. "Keep monitoring their signals," Ree ordered. "We're not letting our guard down until we're clear." The crew nodded, their focus unwavering, each one a testament to human tenacity in the face of overwhelming odds. They hadn't won, not yet, but they'd bought themselves time, a precious commodity in the endless expanse of space. "Captain," Linus said, a note of hope threading through his voice, "the Thala's internal communications are stabilizing. We might just have given them the edge they needed." "Let's hope they use it wisely," Ree replied, though she knew better than to count on wisdom in a universe that thrived on chaos. With the immediate threat contained, the crew of the HMS Irony turned their attention back to the relentless demands of survival. The bridge settled into a tense rhythm, each moment a reminder that they were dancing on the edge of a knife. But amidst the pressure and uncertainty, there was a shared resolve, a grim determination to see things through. They'd faced worse, survived the impossible. They could survive this too. And as the HMS Irony continued its vigil at the crossroads, a lone ship in a sea of uncertainty, Ree allowed herself a small smile, a defiant gesture against the universe's indifference. They weren't finished yet, not by a long shot. "All right, crew, let's gather round," Captain Ree Jackson announced, waving her hand like a conductor at a funeral dirge. The bridge hummed with the subdued chaos of a starship trying not to fall apart under pressure. The HMS Irony was a testament to human ingenuity, or lack thereof, depending on who you asked. Dr. Linus Quell was practically bouncing on the balls of his feet. The man could probably get excited about a fresh coat of paint drying. "Captain, I have an idea," he said, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. "What if we used music and art to stabilize the Thala's neural network?" "Music and art," Zeke snorted, leaning back in his chair like he was at a particularly boring opera. "What next? We hold hands and sing Kumbaya." "Hey, if it works, I'm happy to belt out a few verses," Linus replied, not missing a beat. "After all, the Thala's neural network reacts to emotional frequencies. It's not entirely different from how humans get weepy at sad movies. Or how you get when the coffee machine's broken," Gregor added, his eyebrows taking a skeptical dive. "Point is," Linus continued, ignoring the peanut gallery, "we could use our emotional resonance to stabilize their hive mind. Think of it as emotional acupuncture." "Linus, if this doesn't end with us getting turned into cosmic dust, I'll personally sing your praises," Ree said, her sarcasm barely masking a flicker of hope. But how do you plan to pull this off? Well, I've compiled a playlist that highlights human resilience, creativity, and, a few catchy tunes, Linus said, tapping his console like he was queuing up a party mix. Trust me, if Bohemian Rhapsody doesn't get them, nothing will. Right? Because no one ever got killed by a bit of Queen, Gregor muttered, his fingers dancing across his console with practiced ease. What do we lose if this fails? Oh, just our lives, Zeke interjected, as if discussing the weather. But hey, no pressure. Enough, Ree said, her voice cutting through the banter like a scalpel. Linus, get that signal ready. Gregor, work with him to integrate it into our comms system. Zeke, make sure our shields are ready for round 2, just in case. The crew dispersed with the precision of folks who knew just how much was riding on their every move. There was a shared tension, an electric buzz that threaded through the air like static before a storm, reminding them all of the knife's edge they danced upon. Captain, Linus called, a hint of trepidation in his voice. Our signal's ready. I'm about to transmit. Do it, Ree commanded, hoping their makeshift concert wouldn't end with them being the closing act. Linus pressed the button, and the HMS Irony began broadcasting humanity's greatest hits across the cosmos. As the first notes of Bohemian Rhapsody filled the airwaves, Ree couldn't help but smirk. If nothing else, they'd go down with style. The Thalos ships on the screen seemed to pause, their formation wavering as if caught in a collective moment of confusion. It was a hopeful sign, or maybe they were just trying to figure out if they'd accidentally tuned into intergalactic karaoke night. I think they're listening, Linus said, his voice tinged with awe. Their movements are becoming more synchronized. Less erratic. Or they're just getting ready to wipe us out in perfect harmony, Zeke quipped, though there was a hint of admiration in his tone. The HMS Irony continued its impromptu concert, each song a note of defiance against the universe's indifference. The Thalos ships steadied, their erratic behavior slowly evolving into something resembling a coordinated retreat. I'm picking up changes in their neural patterns, Gregor reported, his eyebrows arching hopefully. It's working, Captain. We're actually stabilizing them. Ree allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Good job, Linus. If we get through this, I might even let you pick the music for once. Don't make promises you can't keep, Linus replied, grinning like a kid who'd just found out his favorite candy was on sale. The countdown on the main monitor continued its relentless tick, a reminder that while they'd bought themselves a bit of time, the show was far from over. Ree turned her attention back to the task at hand, the weight of command settling like a familiar cloak across her shoulders. Zeke, keep those shields up. Gregor, maintain our comms with the fleet. Linus, see if you can dig up any more of those emotional acupunctures. Already on it, Linus said, diving back into his console with the eagerness of a kid in a candy store. The bridge settled into a tense rhythm, each crew member focused on their tasks, the air crackling with anticipation. Outside, the Thalos ships were pulling back, their aggression checked by the slimmest margin of diplomacy and a killer soundtrack. As the seconds slipped away, the HMS Irony remained poised, a lone ship at a cosmic crossroads, standing defiant against the void. Despite the odds, despite the chaos, they were still in the game, and that counted for something. Captain, the Thalos' internal communications are holding steady, Linus reported, a thread of hope weaving through his words. We might just have given them the edge they needed. Let's hope they use it wisely, Ree replied, though she knew better than to count on wisdom in a universe that thrived on chaos. They weren't out of the woods yet, not by a long shot, but they'd made their mark, proved their mettle, and as the HMS Irony continued its vigil at the crossroads, Ree allowed herself a small, defiant smile. They weren't finished yet, not by a long shot. So, what's next? Zeke asked, leaning back in his chair with the air of someone asking if they should order another round. We keep our eyes open and our wits sharper, Ree replied. We're not letting our guard down until we're clear. The crew nodded, their focus unyielding in the face of uncertainty. each one a testament to human tenacity, to the stubborn refusal to bow to the universe's whims. As the HMS Irony continued its watchful gaze, lingering at the cosmic crossroads, an alert lit up on Gregor's console. "Incoming transmission from the Thala," he announced, his eyebrows resembling a pair of cautious slashes. "Put it through," Ree ordered, steeling herself for whatever awaited them. The screen blinked to life, revealing the alien visage of a Thala emissary. Its multifaceted eyes glimmered with something that might have been respect or curiosity. "Human vessel," it began, its voice a harmonious blend of tones. "Your actions have prevented further conflict. We acknowledge your efforts." "Well, that's a first," Zeke muttered, crossing his arms with a skeptical grin. "Aliens actually saying thanks." Ree inclined her head, acknowledging the Thala's words with a measured nod. "We only wish for peace. Let's keep it that way." The Thala's gaze shifted, its expression inscrutable. "Your music, it resonates with our collective. It brings stability where there was chaos." "Guess we owe Queen a favor," Linus murmured, his grin infectious. The Thala emissary continued, "We will retreat and reconvene. Your actions have given us cause to reconsider our path." "Remember, we're just a call away," Ree replied, the words carrying a weight beyond their simplicity. The Thala's image blinked out, leaving the bridge in a silence that felt almost tangible. It was a silence born not of impending doom but of hard-won reprieve. The kind of silence that carried the echo of victory, however fleeting. "We did it," Linus said, his voice laced with disbelief and relief. "We actually did it. Don't start patting yourself on the back just yet," Ree cautioned, though her eyes held a glint of pride. "We're not in the clear until we're well away from here." "Still, that was something, wasn't it?" Gregor said, his eyebrows climbing to new heights of admiration. "Yeah," Zeke agreed, stretching his arms and cracking his knuckles. "We might actually live to complain about the food rations again." Ree chuckled, the sound a rare burst of levity amidst the ever-present tension. "All right, let's get back to work. We've got a ship to run and lives to save." As the crew settled back into their tasks, the HMS Irony's engines hummed with renewed purpose. The Thala ships were retreating, their formation a graceful withdrawal that spoke volumes of their newfound stability. In the grand scheme of things, it was a small victory, a single note in an endless symphony of struggles. But it was theirs, hard-earned and defiant in the face of the universe's indifference. And as they navigated the cosmic crossroads, a lone ship against the backdrop of the infinite, Ree knew they'd made their mark. Humanity had shown its strength, its resilience, its refusal to be silenced. They weren't finished yet, not by a long shot. "Captain," Linus said, turning from his console with a newfound confidence, "the Thala's neural patterns are holding. I think we actually made a difference." "Then let's keep making it," Ree replied, her voice carrying the weight of command and the promise of more to come. The HMS Irony sailed on, a beacon of defiance in the void, ready to face whatever came their way. For in the vast, uncaring universe, they were the wild card, the unexpected element that refused to bow to fate. And as the stars stretched out before them, the crew of the HMS Irony knew they were ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, against all odds, they would continue their journey. For the universe was vast, its challenges many, but humanity was tenacious, determined, and above all, irreverently alive. The HMS Irony drifted through the vast, indifferent cosmos, the echoes of the Thala's retreat still fresh in the minds of its crew. Captain Ree Jackson leaned back in her chair, her mind a whirlpool of thoughts. She'd never been one for sentimentality, but damned if the universe hadn't just thrown her a curveball that made her almost believe in miracles. Almost. "Well, what do you know?" Ree said, her voice dripping with sarcasm that was almost rich enough to drown in. "We played a gig, and the audience didn't throw tomatoes." "Or plasma bombs," Gregor grunted, his eyebrows doing a little dance of their own as he fiddled with the comms. "Imagine that, music as a weapon, a bit like Zeke's cooking." Zeke flipped him off without looking away from his console. "Hey, my cooking could end wars if you gave it a chance, or start the apocalypse." Either way, it's effective. Ree chuckled, a rare sound that was somewhere between disbelief and genuine amusement. Let's not get too comfortable. The universe has a way of kicking you in the teeth the moment you start to believe you're getting somewhere. Linus, still riding the high of their recent success, turned in his chair with a grin that could power a small city. Come on, Captain. You've got to admit, pulling the Thala's strings like a cosmic puppet show was pure genius. Yeah, well, don't get too cocky, Linus, Ree replied, her smile tinged with caution. Just because we managed to hit the right notes doesn't mean the tune's over. The bridge was quiet for a moment, the crew absorbing the weight of what they'd accomplished. It wasn't every day you stopped an alien invasion with a playlist, but then again, the HMS Irony had never been your typical starship. They were a ragtag bunch of misfits, each with more baggage than a luxury cruiser, but they'd somehow managed to make it work. All right, folks, Ree said, shifting back into captain mode. Let's keep our eyes peeled. The Thala might be backing off, but that doesn't mean we're in the clear. We've still got a lot of space to cover, and I'm not keen on sticking around for another encore. Got it, Gregor said, his fingers flying over the console as he adjusted their trajectory. We're still keeping a tight leash on the Thala communications, just in case they decide to change the tempo. Zeke stretched, his chair creaking under the movement. And here I thought I'd join the fleet for some excitement. Turns out it's all about preventing space karaoke, Ree smirked. Trust me, Zeke, this is as exciting as it gets. Besides, who else can say they saved the galaxy with Freddie Mercury's greatest hits? Linus leaned back, a contented sigh escaping his lips. Honestly, I think we might have stumbled onto something here. If music can stabilize their neural network, who's to say what else we can achieve with a bit of human ingenuity? Don't go getting ideas of galactic peace just yet, Linus, Ree replied, her tone gentle but firm. The universe isn't exactly known for its kindness, and neither are its residents. Silence settled over the bridge again, a comfortable sort of quiet where everyone could hear their own thoughts, an unusual luxury in the chaos of space. The crew busied themselves with their tasks, each one a cog in the complex machinery that kept the HMS Irony operational. Incoming transmission, Gregor announced, breaking the silence. His eyebrows were doing a cautious dance again, like they were testing the waters before diving in. From the Thala, Ree asked, her attention snapping to the screen with the precision of a seasoned captain. Gregor nodded, bringing the message to life. The screen flickered, revealing the familiar visage of the Thala emissary. Its eyes, bright and multifaceted, reflected a new understanding, or maybe just a grudging respect. Human vessel, the Thala's voice resonated through the bridge, harmonious and layered like a choir of the damned. Your transmission has provided insight into the concept of individualism. It is a foreign concept to us, yet one that offers possibilities. Ree raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. Glad we could be of help. So what's the plan? Are you guys going to start a band now? The Thala's expression remained inscrutable. We have much to consider. Your species' capacity for creative expression is enlightening. We will retreat to deliberate on future engagements. Sounds like a plan, Zeke muttered, leaning back with a smirk. Bet they'll be hosting an intergalactic talent show next. Ree nodded to the Thala emissary. Take your time, and remember, if you ever need to borrow our playlist, just let us know. With a blink, the transmission ended, leaving the crew to digest the implications. It was a tentative piece, fragile and uncertain, but it was more than they'd had an ire ago. We actually did it, Linus said, his voice tinged with awe. We turned a potential war into a cultural exchange program. Don't start writing the history books yet, Ree replied, though her tone was more amused than dismissive. We've still got a long way to go before we can call this a victory. Yeah, but it's a start, Gregor said, his focus returning to the ship's systems. And sometimes that's all you need. The bridge settled into its usual rhythm, the crew each lost in their thoughts as they continued their vigil. The stars outside seemed a little brighter, the void a bit less oppressive. Maybe it was the adrenaline, or maybe it was the knowledge that they'd done something truly remarkable. "Captain," Linus called, glancing over his shoulder. "The Thala's neural patterns are holding steady. Whatever we did, it seems to be sticking." Ree leaned back, allowing herself a small, satisfied smile. "Good to know. Let's keep it that way. We're not out of the woods yet, but at least we've got a path." Zeke rolled his eyes, though his grin betrayed his sarcasm. "And here I thought we'd be stuck here forever, singing Kumbaya with the aliens." "You're welcome to hand out tambourines at the next meeting," Ree quipped, her tone light despite the gravity of their situation. They continued their journey, the HMS Irony, a lone ship navigating the uncertainties of space. The Thala had retreated, but the universe was still as vast and unknowable as ever. Challenges lay ahead, each one a test of their resolve, their ingenuity, their humanity. But for now, they'd earned a moment, a brief respite in the chaos. As the HMS Irony sailed onward, Ree knew they'd made a difference. Maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but enough to matter. Enough to prove that even in the face of an uncaring cosmos, humanity had a way of making itself heard. "What's next on the agenda, Captain?" Gregor asked, his hands still busy with the controls. Ree shrugged, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "Same as always, Gregor. We live to fight another day, and maybe, just maybe, we find a way to make it count." The crew nodded, their determination renewed, their purpose clear. They were a small ship in a big universe, but they'd proven that size wasn't everything. And as they charted their course into the unknown, the HMS Irony and its crew were ready for whatever lay ahead. For in the vastness of space, they were more than just survivors. They were fighters, dreamers, and, above all, the ones who refused to stay silent. "Keep the playlist ready, Linus," Ree said, her voice carrying the weight of command mingled with a hint of jest. "We might need an encore." Linus grinned, his fingers dancing over the console with renewed vigor. "You're the boss, Captain. Let's make some noise." And so they continued, riding the ripple of their recent triumph, ready to face whatever challenges the universe threw their way. For in their hearts they knew that as long as they had each other and a good playlist, they'd never truly be alone. "And maybe," Ree mused quietly, "we'll even manage to change a few minds along the way." The universe had a way of making you feel insignificant, like a flea on a cosmic dog. But there was one undeniable truth about the HMS Irony and her crew. They were determined to be the itch that wouldn't go away. The ship, a patchwork of scuffed metal and questionable engineering, moved through space with the kind of grace one would expect from a drunk stumbling home from the pub. Captain Ree Jackson stood on the bridge, her expression as unreadable as a politician's promise. The Thala had retreated for now, and the ship's playlist was on pause. But the silence wasn't necessarily golden. "So, what's the plan, Captain?" Private Zeke asked, his voice carrying the casual indifference of someone who didn't know whether he was going to cook dinner or blow up the ship with the same set of ingredients. "Survive," Ree replied, her tone dry as a politician's apology. "And maybe find a nice, quiet corner of the universe where no one's trying to kill us." "Any suggestions?" "Try the afterlife," Gregor muttered, his eyebrows performing an interpretive dance that suggested skepticism mixed with a hint of sardonic amusement. Ree ignored him, focusing instead on the glowing display of coordinates and trajectories. The Thala were now allies, though calling them allies was like calling a crocodile a great swimming companion. You could, but it was probably a bad idea. "It's not like we've got a lot of options," Gregor continued, fiddling with the comms. "The human fleet's more of a collection of tin cans with engines than a formidable force." Linus chimed in with his usual enthusiasm, which was as contagious as a smile and twice as annoying. "But think about it, we've got them to back off, maybe even reconsider their entire approach to the universe." Zeke snorted. "Yeah, and maybe pigs will fly us to the next galaxy, with a side of bacon for the journey." Ree couldn't help but grin at that. If only bacon could solve all our problems. Might have saved us a lot of trouble. The bridge settled into a comfortable rhythm, the crew's banter a welcome distraction from the looming uncertainty. For once, the stars outside seemed a bit less hostile, even though they still twinkled with the indifferent malice of 1,000 cosmic eyes. "How are the Thala holding up?" Ree asked, glancing at Linus. He was the designated expert on alien brainwaves, though how they decided that was beyond her. "Stable," Linus replied, his fingers dancing across the console. "Still a bit of fluctuation, but nothing major. It's like we've given them a taste of freedom and now they're trying to figure out what to do with it." "Good luck with that," Gregor said. "Freedom's a hell of a drug. Just look at what it's done for humanity." "And what has it done?" Zeke asked, leaning back with a smirk. "Given us bills, existential dread, and reality TV." "Exactly," Gregor replied, his voice as dry as a desert in a drought. "We're the poster children for why freedom needs a warning label." Ree shook her head, amusement tugging at her lips despite herself. "Enough philosophizing, boys. We've got a ship to run. And just because we're not under immediate threat doesn't mean we can slack off." "Isn't that exactly what it means?" Zeke countered, though he obediently turned back to his console. "I mean, if the universe is gonna give us a break, we might as well take it." Ree rolled her eyes, her patience an ever-diminishing resource. "Look, just keep your eyes peeled. The Thala might be playing nice now, but that doesn't mean we can trust them. And we sure as hell can't trust the universe to play fair." The crew settled into their tasks, the bridge humming with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled, or at least adequately greased, machine. The HMS Irony continued her journey through the cosmic void, her crew a ragtag band of misfits who somehow managed to make it work. "Incoming transmission," Gregor announced, his eyebrows arching in curiosity. "It's from the Thala." "Let's hear it," Ree said, her tone a mix of resignation and intrigue. She wasn't sure what to expect, but then that was part of the fun. The screen flickered to life, revealing the Thala emissary. Its expression was as inscrutable as ever, like a poker player with an infinite deck. "Human vessel," the Thala began, its voice a symphony of overlapping tones. "Our deliberations have concluded. We wish to propose a collaboration." Ree's eyes narrowed. "What kind of collaboration?" "A sharing of knowledge and resources," the Thala replied. "Your species' capacity for innovation is intriguing. We believe there is much we can learn from one another." Zeke leaned over to whisper to Gregor, "Think they are after our secret recipes?" "'Cause if they try Zeke's surprise, they are in for a shock." Gregor didn't respond, but his eyebrows handled the sarcasm well enough. Recrossed her arms, considering the offer. "And what do we get out of it?" The Thala's multifaceted eyes glimmered. "Assistance, protection, and perhaps a greater understanding of the universe we all inhabit." Gregor snorted, though he tried to cover it with a cough. "Protection from what?" "Ourselves." Ree shot him a look before turning back to the screen. "We'll consider it, but know this, if you turn on us we won't go quietly." The Thala inclined its head, an almost human gesture. "Understood, we await your decision." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the bridge in a contemplative silence. "What do you think, Captain?" Linus asked, his voice tinged with genuine curiosity. Ree sighed, running a hand through her hair. I think we're standing on the edge of something big. But whether it's a cliff or a new horizon, I couldn't tell you." "Well, whatever it is," Zeke said, "I'll make sure we've got a decent meal ready. Last thing we need is to face the unknown on an empty stomach." "Or on a full one if you're cooking," Gregor added, earning a glare from Zeke. Ree chuckled, despite herself. "All right, let's keep our options open. And remember, if they start singing Kumbaya, we're out." The crew returned to their tasks, the air filled with a cautious optimism. They were a small ship in a big universe, but they'd proven they could hold their own. They'd stared into the darkness and found something worth fighting for, not just survival, but a chance to make a difference. "Captain," Linus called, his voice breaking through Ree's thoughts. "We've got a new trajectory from the Thala. Shall I plot a course?" Ree nodded, her resolve firm. "Let's see where it leads, and keep the playlist handy just in case." The HMS Irony sailed on, her crew ready to face whatever the universe threw their way. They were more than just survivors. They were the ones who refused to fade into the background, the ones who dared to dream of a future where humanity's voice could be heard across the stars. And who knows, Ree mused, a wry smile tugging at her lips, maybe we'll even teach them a thing or two about rock and roll. As the ship ventured into the unknown, the crew of the HMS Irony was reminded of one simple truth. They might not have all the answers, but they had each other. And sometimes that was more than enough. With a shared sense of purpose, they embraced the challenge, ready to unite with their one enemies and forge a path through the cosmic tapestry. In the vastness of space, they were a testament to the power of diversity and unity in overcoming the universe's indifference. "Ready for the encore?" Zeke asked, a twinkle in his eye. "Always," Ree replied, her tone carrying the weight of experience and the hope of new beginnings. Together they faced the future, knowing that whatever happened next, they'd face it as one.